So I actually would like to take you to the journey of the bead case study, which Joe said. But since moon is the topic of the month recently, जैसे any project to do well, हिंदी में हम बोलते चार चांद लगा देते हैं उसको. We say चार चांद में पहला चांद है ज्ञानचंद, रायचंद, मूलचंद, लक्ष्मी चंद मतलब पैसे वाला, एंड द लास्ट इज करमचंद. तो रायचंद हमारे कंट्री में तो बहुत है, करोड़ों है. रायचंद मीन्स गिविंग ओपिनियन फॉर अदर्स हु आर नॉट फेमिलियर विद हिंदी. रायचंद. Even a tea seller can tell Modi how to run the country. Even a panwala can tell Rohit Sharma whether to take batting or fielding after winning a toss. But neither can the tea seller make a good cup of tea, neither can panwala make a good pan. Though they have been working for 20 years. The second will be the Gyan Chand. There are so many people who have got very good knowledge, but the application is missing. They have very good knowledge, but it remains in their books, in their minds, in their papers, but it's not applied. The third is the Mulchand, the people with money who want to do something with their money. Some of them are lost, they don't know what to do. Some of them don't trust, so they don't give the money. And the last is the Karamchand, which I love the most, which our country lacks. But I was fortunate to meet people with all four qualities together. And that's why today I'm in front of you representing a big group of people. I'm just a face of caring friends. I'm not the reason. We are just the medium through which it happened. And Ramesh, our founder, his wife sings a very good bhajan. I'm not a religious person, but I love that bhajan because it's happened with me. मेरा आपकी दया से सब काम हो रहा है, करता है तू कन्हैया, मेरा नाम हो रहा है. So this thing is that when you have a purity of purpose, I think the world conspires to see that you become successful. So 2016, when we went to Bain, the reason we picked up Bain was it got a highest suicide rate in the country. Maharashtra is the suicide capital of India, and Bain is the suicide capital of Maharashtra. So we picked up Bain as a case study, and it is a punishment posting district. Any district collector posted in Bain is on punishment posting. So it is a very, very tough district to work. But we found a very good NGO in Manavlok, Ambejogai, whom we partnered with. Dipti, my colleague here, was very much part of the case Bain project. And Lalaji Agde, I will just say a few words about Lala. He is with Manavlok from last 30 years. And during the 93 Kilari earthquake, they were the first to reach in Latur, which was one of the worst earthquakes India faced. And there were more than 120 children who were orphaned. He himself was 24 years then, and he took care of that 120 children for 4 years. Cooking, bathing them. So this is something that commitment comes from these people. So these are the real Karamchands, and they are the inspiration that drives me to do more. So let me move with this to the Bain case study that we are here for. What we hope to show you to this is the transformation that is possible with very simple interventions. We don't need very high funding or anything. It's very simple things. And this, as Mridula said, that water bodies, and this is not an invention made by caring friends. We just discovered it. Traditional water bodies have been maintained by the community traditionally. So traditional wisdom in India has been very good. But somewhere down the line, it has been forgotten or rather neglected. Though people know, they don't know how to come together. So somewhere, I think external common denominator is required to mobilize people. That's where we come in. Bain is one of the districts in Maharashtra which was drought stricken, and 2015-16 was the worst drought in almost 3-4 decades. So that is the reason we were there. One key reason in that Bain has got 2,500 water bodies, and the total area is 1 lakh acres. The total area of square kilometers of Bain is 10,650 square kilometers. And it is almost the second biggest district in Maharashtra with a population of 25 lakhs. And this district becomes important because it is one of the, if you call it an aspirational district that wise, but really stricken by the drought, worst district affected by the drought in the Marathwada region, which consists of 8 districts. So the water capture was just 26% in the water bodies. When you say water capture, 74% was dry, and this is largely due to accumulation of silt, we call sedimentation. Now this silt, when we started our work in Jalna in 2013, we found that it is actually a simple solution. All we need to do is engage the excavator, remove the silt, and the farmers take it. The silt is gold. The farmers know the value of silt very well. So the farmers cart the silt at their own cost. Now these are the same farmers that are putting in 75% of the project cost. One of the rare interventions in the country where the beneficiary is bearing 75% of the cost. Usually it is other way around, 20-25% the beneficiary pays and 75% the donor or the funders pay. So this is not unique to actually bead. When we see bead, this is just a bead case study, but Joe has put a very good map here and he studied the full area that is happening across the world. Sedimentation is a global phenomenon. And here I will just pause for a moment. Fast forward from 2016 to 2019. 2016, I met Dipti. That time she was with Give India and she was handling Amit Chandra's portfolio. So they just came asking that can we work together on bead. So this is where I say the world conspires, and I met Amit, due to whom we could scale it to Maharashtra and now with Niti Aayog in many other districts. So things fall in place. 2019, I met Joe. He contacted me through a common friend, and Joe and Karthik were looking for projects in India which they could take it to national scale. They found that Indian NGOs are very small. So they had this concept called GTNS, grow to national scale. And they selected 6 projects. So water was one of them, and I met them. So I very sheepishly sent an email to all my caring friends that Amit, Dipti and me have passed the IIT entrance exam. So this is where 2019 we met Joe, and today I am here thanks to him. The way he's put his heart and soul in this event, I must say it's been very contagious and really raised the bar for all these things. Mridula is another inspiration, and I'm happy to be surrounded by such people and on the ground with people like Aniket and Lala. So here I stop. I think I hand it over to Aniket because he is from Bain. He can take it to the journey.
Thank you, Nimesh bhai. हम पहले एक वीडियो चलाते हैं and we'll go ahead.
तालाब से गाद निकाल के उसे खेतों में डालने से अकाल प्रभावित गांवों को अकाल मुक्त होने में मदद तो होती ही है, साथ ही ग्रामीण आय में बढ़ोतरी होने में भी सहायता होती है। इसके कारण किसानों में आत्मविश्वास पुनर्स्थापित हो रहा है।
ये जो तालाब आप देख रहे हैं, इसमें 1972 साल से आज तक बहुत भारी मात्रा में गाद जमा हो गई थी। इसी वजह से तालाब में पानी बहुत कम इकट्ठा होता था। हम सबके सामने एक ही लक्ष्य था कि हम इस तालाब से गाद निकालें। ग्राम सभा में जब चर्चा हुई तो तय हुआ कि जो छोटे किसान हैं या जिनके खेत 1 हेक्टेयर से कम हैं, उन्हें प्राथमिकता दी जाएगी।
फिर हम दोनों ने निर्णय लिया कि किसी भी तरह पैसे जुटा के हम साझेदारी में गाद डालेंगे।
तो आपने अभी देखा है कि किस तरह मोहा में हमने काम किया था कम्युनिटी के साथ। 2016 में ये काम हुआ था और करीबन 200 फार्मर्स ने अपने खेत पे सिल्ट यहाँ पे डाला था। तो मुझे लगता है ये जो सिल्ट है वो उसका महत्व, जो सिल्ट को गोल्ड कहा जाता है, उसका महत्व हमारे फार्मर्स बहुत अच्छी तरह से जानते हैं। अराउंड 75% जो कॉस्ट है वो फार्मर्स खुद बेयर कर रहे हैं। वहां पे हमने देखा है कि जो कार्टिंग कॉस्ट है या फार्मर बेयर्स द कॉस्ट ऑफ द ट्रांसपोर्टेशन ऑफ दिस सिल्ट विच टिपिकली वर्क्स आउट टू 75% ऑफ टोटल। तो ये जो कॉस्ट है वो फार्मर्स वहां पे बेयर कर रहे हैं। प्लस पोरिंग करना है, उसको स्प्रेड करना है अपने अपने खेत पे, ये सब काम फार्मर्स ने वहां पे किया है. Government and donors via CSR or foundations bear the excavation cost, which is around 25%. जो बहुत ही वैसे देखा जाए तो बहुत ही कम है, 25%. In some case, the community also contribute towards this cost. ये करीबन 25% कॉस्ट जो है वो गवर्नमेंट कंट्रीब्यूट कर रही है. महाराष्ट्र में गाड़ मुक्त धरण और गाड़ मुक्त शिवार, ये जो स्कीम 2017 से शुरू की, उसमें डीजल कॉस्ट जो है वो गवर्नमेंट अभी बेयर कर रही है. और एक्सकेवेशन के लिए जो मशीन कॉस्ट है, जैसे एक्सकेवेटर है, बैकोलोडर्स है, तो उसका जो मेंटेनेंस कॉस्ट है वो सीएसआर या फाउंडेशंस या एनजीओस के तरफ से जाता है. और बाकी कॉस्ट जो है वो फार्मर्स वहां पे बेयर कर रहा है. Farmers applied silt. They took on their farms, improving its fertility and yield. तो ये हमने काफी जगह पे देखा है. मैं खुद एक 25 साल से फार्मिंग कर रहा हूँ. मेरे फैमिली की काफी बड़ी लैंड थी और लास्ट 25-30 साल से वहां पे मैं जब फार्मिंग करता था तो मैंने देखा है कि जब हम वो सिल्ट उठा के अपने खेत में डालते हैं तो नेचुरली उसके काफी ज्यादा फायदे हैं कि वहां पे फर्टिलाइजर का, जो केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर का यूज है वो काफी कम होता है, पेस्टिसाइड का यूज काफी कम होता है. स्पेशली वीडीसाइड का जो यूज है, जो फार्मर्स अभी काफी बड़े पैमाने पे कर रहे हैं, क्योंकि लैक ऑफ लेबर ये भी एक कारण है. तो मुझे लगता है कि सीड डालने के बाद वहां पे एटलीस्ट 5-6 साल जो वीडीसाइड हम यूज करते हैं वो यूज करने की जरूरत नहीं है. ईल्ड में तो दुगना तिगना 2 times 3 times हमने ये भी देखा है कि ईल्ड बढ़ रहा है. ये एक हमारे सहयोगी है डॉक्टर बंग, जिन्होंने गवर्नमेंट के साथ हमें जोड़ के महाराष्ट्र में गाड़ मुक्त धरण और गाड़ मुक्त शिवार जो स्कीम बनाई, तो उनका काफी अच्छा सहयोग उसमें था. तो गवर्नमेंट ने इसके लिए क्यों सपोर्ट किया है, इसका एक छोटा सा मुझे लगता है वीडियो हम यहाँ पे दिखाएंगे.
Background and no previous experience in water, but though you are very close to the drought districts, what made you take this up and propose it to the government of Maharashtra?
So there were 2 reasons. One is, of course, the relationship between water and public health is very well known, whether it is waterborne disease or water washable disease, diseases due to water scarcity. And second, rejuvenation of water body I had known as a priority, especially again from my background of being from Gadchiroli. And Dr. Vijay Kerkar, as chairman of the high-level committee for regional balanced development of Maharashtra, had very categorically recommended rejuvenation of the traditional water bodies. So when I discussed this possibility with the then Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, his response was quite instantaneous. In fact, I remember that I narrated him the subject line of this draft initiative, and within next 10 seconds, he signed off on the order to set up a high-level committee. What was even more remarkable that the committee was set up not just comprising of usual government officials from the water conservation or water irrigation department, but also involving philanthropists like Amit, Chandra, Nimesh and other colleagues. And I think that truly lent a tremendous strength to the committee. When I compare the current situation in Maharashtra vis-a-vis the situation of 2014-15, especially that sight of a water train going to Latur and the distressful mood of Maharashtra, I think there is distinctly change in that. I had heard about the drought of 60s and 70s and how Maharashtra came together. I think similarly we rose to the occasion. There is a sense of tremendous responsibility, knowing the fact that with climate change, we have to some extent postponed the crisis, not fully averted. So both a sense of celebration and a sense of responsibility is what really pervades my mind when I look back on the experience of last 8 years.
Visible water outcomes due to RWV. Water is always difficult to get hold of. Let's now see what water outcomes can be measured in the performance of water bodies. The water bodies captured, which can be, which was previously 26%, has now gone up to near about 66%. The retention of water in May, April, which was previously 16%, आप सोच सकते हो कि 16% जो पानी था, now goes up to around 45%. Looking at this from a community lens, 165 gram panchayats in Bid witnessed transformation. करीबन 165 ग्राम पंचायतों ने इसमें सहयोग दिया था हमें, और उन्होंने वो महसूस किया है कि जो ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हो रहा है, हुआ है इस काम से। तो यहाँ पे आप देख रहे हो कि ये बीड का डिस्ट्रिक्ट का मैप है, और वहाँ पे जहाँ पे भी हमने सबने मिलके जो काम किया है तो उसका असर क्या हो रहा है। तो आप देख सकते हो कि जो ब्लैक कलर है, द ब्लैक स्टैंड्स आर जीपीज दैट डिड नॉट गेट एनी वाटर बिफोर। यहाँ पे कोई पानी बहुत सा नहीं था, लेकिन अभी उन्होंने काम करने के बाद काफी कुछ बदलाव वहां पे हुआ है। द ग्रे शेड्स आर जीपीज वेयर द वाटर कैप्चर हैज गॉन अप बाय मोर देन 50%। करीबन 50% से ज्यादा वहां पे पानी की बढ़ोतरी वहां पे हुई है। फार्मिंग एंड कम्युनिटी इम्पैक्ट ड्यू टू RWB।
नया जीवन दान, ये जो इस जमीन को मिला है वो गाद डालने से मिला है।
सही मायने में कहें तो ये गाद जो है किसी मैजिक मिट्टी से कम नहीं।
कभी बरसात ज्यादा हो गई या फिर ज्यादा मात्रा में पानी भर गया तो ये गाद डाली हुई जमीन की पानी सोखने की क्षमता बढ़ी है, और अगर बारिश कम भी हुई तो खेतों में नमी बनी रहती है। एक समय में इस जमीन से परिवार के खाने का जुगाड़ नहीं हो पाता था। आज इसी खेत में आप ये केले देख रहे हैं। गाद डालने के बाद इतनी उपज हुई है कि खेती से लगभग 5 से 6 लाख तक का मुनाफा मिलता है। खेती बहुत बढ़िया हुई है, खेती से आमदनी बढ़ी है। अब एक ही सपना है कि बस मैं अपना घर बना लूं, और खेती की आमदनी से ही घर बनाना है, और ये मैं करके दिखाऊंगा। 2 बच्चे हैं, स्कूल जाते हैं। अब उनकी जिंदगी और बेहतर हो सके इसीलिए मैं उन्हें पढ़ाऊंगा। इस जमीन की ताकत गाद में है। आज मुझे जितना भरोसा बारिश पर है उससे कहीं ज्यादा भरोसा गाद पर है।
ये अभी आप जो देख रहे थे वो हमारा फार्मर है महादेव। उसका एक स्टोरी निमेश भाई मैं थोड़ा सा बताना चाहता हूँ।
हाँ, ऑफ कोर्स।
आपको तो मालूम है कि बीड जो डिस्ट्रिक्ट है मेरा, तो वहां से सीजनल माइग्रेशन बहुत होता है, स्पेशली शुगर केन कटिंग के लिए। और महादेव हमारा एक ऐसा फार्मर था कि जिसे माइग्रेट होना पड़ता था। तो माइग्रेट होना ये बहुत दुख की बात है कि माइग्रेशन ये 6 महीने जब कोई फार्मर उसके वाइफ को लेके बाहर जाता है तो उसका इम्पैक्ट उसके फैमिली पे होता है कि बच्चों की पढ़ाई नहीं होती, बूढ़े लोगों का, जो घर में बूढ़े लोग हैं उनके तरफ किसी का ध्यान नहीं होता, और काफी इम्पैक्ट उनके फैमिली पे, सोशल इम्पैक्ट होता है। तो महादेव जब उसने सीड डालने की कोशिश की, उसकी इच्छा थी, तो उसके पास पैसे नहीं थे। तो महादेव ने उसके बहन से हैंड लोन लिया। तो बहन ने उसके गहने गिरवी रख के वो हैंड लोन उसको दिया था, सोना दिया था। और सबसे बड़ी बात यह है कि सील डालने के बाद जब उसने उसके खेती में सील डाला तो उसकी जो ईल्ड है वो करीबन 3 टाइम्स बढ़ गया, क्योंकि कॉटन का फार्मिंग वो करता था। तो 3 टाइम्स बढ़ने के बाद उसने विदिन 6 मंथ्स अपने बहन को पैसे वापस कर दिए। तो ये ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हमने वहां पे देखा है, और ऐसे काफी महादेव हमारे एरिया में अभी आगे आ गए हैं। जो जीपीज में ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन हुआ है तो उसका एक कुछ फिगर्स आपके सामने हम रखना चाहते हैं। across की फार्मिंग एस्पेक्ट्स जो फार्मर्स को बेनिफिट मिला है, तो रिटर्न ऑन इन्वेस्टमेंट जब हम उसका कैलकुलेट कर रहे थे कि जो इन्वेस्टमेंट हमने किया है तो उसका रिटर्न कितना आया है, तो हमने एक सर्वे किया अराउंड 250 फार्मर्स के साथ 17 जीपीज में, जहां पे हम लोगों ने काम किया था। तो सिलेक्टेड करके हमने वहां पे जाके कुछ फार्मर्स के साथ बात की, तो जो रिजल्ट्स हमारे सामने आए वो वहां यहाँ पे आपके सामने रखने की कोशिश हमने की है। तो जैसे मैंने कहा कि 97 फार्मर्स जो हमारे हैं उनके ईल्ड में इंक्रीज हुआ है। 97% जो इंक्रीज है ईल्ड में वो यहाँ पे आपको दिखेगा। क्वालिटी ऑफ क्रॉप जो है तो उसमें भी काफी इंक्रीज हुआ है। जब उनके ईल्ड में इंक्रीज होता है तो नेचुरली उनके क्रॉप के क्वालिटी में भी इंक्रीज होता है। शिफ्टिंग टू हायर वैल्यू क्रॉप्स, तो जनरली हमारे यहाँ हायर वैल्यू क्रॉप्स लिए नहीं जाते थे, लेकिन अभी फार्मर्स वो डेयरिंग कर रहे हैं कि हायर वैल्यू क्रॉप्स की तरफ जाए, क्योंकि रिस्क उसमें ज्यादा है, तो रिस्क लेने की भी तैयारी अभी फार्मर्स में हुई है। रीयूज ऑफ फॉलो लैंड, जो बिल्कुल बंजर जमीन थी तो उस जमीन पे लोगों ने सील डाल के वहां पे बहुत अच्छा उसका रीयूज किया है। और यहाँ पे आप देख रहे हो कि उसका भी परसेंटेज हमने दिया है। 63% जो ऐसी लैंड थी वो कल्टीवेशन में आ गई है। 100% क्रॉप्स पर ईयर लेने की कोशिश वहां पे फार्मर्स कर रहे हैं। जैसे मैंने कहा कि 100% saw increase in incomes, almost all saw their land value doubled, कि जो वैल्यू की कोई कीमत ही नहीं थी तो वो लैंड की कीमत भी अभी काफी वहां पे बढ़ गई। अभी जो पहले ये था कि सेविंग पे हम ज्यादा ध्यान देते थे, क्योंकि ड्राउट प्रोन एरिया होने से जितना हम सेव कर ले, हमारे पास जो भी है उससे में कैसे सेविंग करना वो हमें ज्यादा मालूम था। लेकिन अभी हम इन्वेस्टमेंट की तरफ जा रहे हैं। उसका कारण ये है कि आज हमारे पास जो हमारी जो आय है, जो इनकम है, वो काफी अच्छी तरह से बढ़ गई है, और वो इनकम प्रॉपर जगह पे इन्वेस्ट करना का काम हम लोग अभी वहां पे कर रहे हैं। तो उसका एक लाइवलीहुड आउटकम्स का एक चार्ट यहाँ पे हमने दिया है कि इनकम इंक्रीज इन एनुअल इनकम में तो वो करीबन 100% बढ़ गया है, तो उसका भी चार्ट हमने दिया है। लैंड वैल्यू इनकम वैल्यू का इंक्रीज जो है वो भी हमने यहाँ पे दिया है। एबिलिटी टू मेक इन्वेस्टमेंट, जैसे मैंने कहा कि वो एबिलिटी अभी हम में जनरेट हुई है, तैयार हुई है, तो हम इन्वेस्टमेंट भी कर रहे हैं। सबसे बड़ी बात मुझे लगती है कि एजुकेशन का जो एक वहाँ पे इन्वायरमेंट था वो काफी पुअर था हमारे यहाँ, क्योंकि काफी लोग एजुकेटेड नहीं थे। तो वो पैसा आने के बाद मुझे लगता है कि उसका प्रॉपर इन्वेस्टमेंट जो हो रहा है, तो वो इन्वेस्टमेंट बच्चों के एजुकेशन में हो रहा है। दिस इज वेरी गुड थिंग एक्चुअली, कि अब मैं अगर पढ़ा लिखा नहीं हूँ तो मेरे बच्चों को मुझे पढ़ाने की जो उम्मीद है वो हम कर रहे हैं।
Okay, so here what some studies that they have done to the 17 GPs, the survey which IIT did, was high soil health improvement. There was a real improvement in the soil health, because as you know that the silt is highly fertile, the NPK levels are very high. Then reused 1 acre less than or greater than 1 acre fallow land. Fallow land is banjar jameen, we call it uncultivable land. Many of the farmers were smart enough, instead of putting the silt on their cultivable land, their uncultivable land, which was not in use at all, they put the silt on that, and that has gone up. So in India, when we say that the agriculture land is going down every year, this one intervention is such which is increasing the agriculture land under agriculture. So then high yield quality is there, of course, and improvement in water. Everybody knows that the soil health and water requirement goes parallel. So the moisture retention of this soil is much better than others. Then the livestock breeding improved, of course, with availability of water. There were more people having more cattle and there was no distress selling of cattle, etc. So in the rural Maharashtra, the second alternative income in agriculture is livestock. So that has got a real boost. So now I'll be playing the video to bring forward the impact of water on the women. The women are the worst sufferers in a drought. Besides continuing the work course daily, they have to fetch water. But in India, it is a common knowledge that men don't fetch water. They use water, but they don't fetch water. Children and women fetch water. So it was a big, tough task. So I will just try to highlight some of the.
आता धुणं धुतलं तर महिला पाणी काय करीत होत्या, साचवून ठेवीत होत्या. त्याच पाण्यानं सडा टाकायचा, त्याच पाण्यानं आता बाथरूमला यूज करायचं पाणी तीच. आता तशी समस्या नाही. आता तसं करण्याची गरज नाही. आता भरपूर पाणी आहे. पुन्हा तीच पाणी मुलांना कुंकून बाहेरून आलं तर हातपाय धुवायला तीच पाणी घाण पाण्याची वापर करावा लागत होता, हे करावं लागत होता. आता तसं नाही. आता भरपूर पाणी आहे त्याच्यामुळं एवढा ताण येत नाही.
सकाळी उठायचं, लवकर पहाटे 4ला उठायचं, बारीला बसायचं, पाणी नसायचं, पाणी तिथून 4 घागरी आणायचं, बारी धरून आणायचं, बारी यायची 2-2 तास घरचं काम राहायचं, 2-2 तास 3-3 तास तिथंच बारीला बसावं लागायचं. घरी आलं तर स्वयंपाक राहायचा, जेवण राहायचं, लेकराला शाळेत जायला उशीर
जायचा सर, भांडणं व्हायचे, जिपराजिपरी व्हायची, लेकराच्या मारामाऱ्या व्हायच्या, लेकराला कुणी भरू द्यायचं नाही, बिकट परिस्थिती होती ती. कोर्टापोस्टर भांडणं गेलेले सर पाणी भरताना. लेकरं उपाशी शाळेला जायचे, आई तशीच कामाला जायची बाया गेलेल्या असल्या तर. पाणी टायमाला नाही मिळाल्यावर काय करता येत नाही.
पहिले बी लोक बरेच जात होते ना, आता बी थोडे जातेच ऊसतोड कामगारला. ते पहिले जात होते 75% लोक गावातले जात होते आमचे ऊसतोड कामगारला. आता थोडे कमी चालले म्हणा, 25% कमी चालले, 50% तर जातेच अजून बी.
So this is the Gram Panchayats that witnessed the transformation. There were about 14 that were surveyed, and there was a remarkable improvement in water table. There was, of course, reduction of the drudgery of fetching water from long distances for the women and children, and reduction in the GP cost for buying water, because sometimes the government send tankers, but those are not enough for the village, so they have to buy water. And during the drought time, the tanker also increase their prices. So it's a big problem for the villagers. So if they come together to buy water, the tankers were needed. So the number of tankers, the frequency also went up. Then the reduction in water tankers was the result of the desilting, because of which straight away there was direct impact on water. There was an article in the newspaper that there were about, in 2020 the article was, there were about 1,500 odd tankers in Marathwada region. And after the intervention of so many agencies, not yours alone, there were other NGOs also who worked, the government worked. There were only 27 tankers moving around in that Marathwada region. So there was a big drop in the usage of tankers. The sanitation and health related water, as you saw in the video, some of the women were saying that they were reusing the water. Actually, any videos you see, any CD, PPT you see, you cannot get a feel of the drought. I'll tell you what happened in Jalna when we visited Jalna first time. I was a guest of a biggest multi-millionaire guy in Jalna. He had an imported SUV standing outside his house. He's got an 8-bedroom bungalow, and I was his guest. And he served me breakfast in paper plates, being a guest from Mumbai. Imagine if a person like that is not able to afford utensils in his house, what will happen to the poor? When I went to Manav Lok first time, we were new to each other, 2016. And there is a small organization run by his sister for women, and we used to have our meals there. So after my meals were over, Lala, Aniket, all of them were washing hands in the thali. And I was not used to it. I started, like washing hands in thali. 2-3 times every weekend I was there. I made 60 trips between November 2015 and June 2016. After a few trips, when they were a little friendly, they told me, Nimesh bhai, we wash our hands in the thali so that the usage of water is less. We let the water remain in the thali so that the stains and other oil is removed. And we put some salt on it to make it coarse and wash the dishes. And then I started washing my hands in the thali. So such is the impact of water. As we talk now, Ambe Jogai is got about more than 30-40 hospitals. It's got a population of 90,000. It is getting water once in 15 days. And that too, not for the full day, only for 2-3 hours. This is a story, and increase in water hygiene and of course water related diseases, there's a reduction. It's obvious. Many people in BD, even when I stayed, I used to do dry clean myself. For 1 week, 10 days, when I used to stay in a hotel, I couldn't use water. Even in Bombay, when after coming from the drought region, automatic my hand was slow on the usage of water. I started tipping my maids extra money so that they use less water because they are the ones who use water. So there was a drastic change. One of my friend's son, when he came to the drought meet, he stopped using shower, for bathing. He started using a bucket. So there's a deep impact. I would love to call you to Bid to come and see the interventions that they have done. It's an amazing thing. And the feeling there, like Joe was when he came, Karthik, I think it will be a drastic, and we will definitely learn a lot from all of your experiences. A high impact on livestock, daily wage, employment, and out migration. This is all almost parallel to water because water is life. Water is not for drinking alone or for bathing, but it's life. Everything revolves around water. So if there is crop, there is daily wages. If there is daily wages, there is no migration. If there is water, there is fodder. If there are fodder, there is livestock. So all these are connected, very connected. And you can see the percentages: increased fodder availability, decrease in distress sale of cotton. Cattle camps were going on in the district. There were huge cattle camps, big ones. And this saved the farmers from distress sale of cattle. They will sell the cattle at a very low price, and once after the rains, they will buy the cattle at a higher price. But they had no option for this. So this was a real common phenomenon. Then the migration, as the woman said, there is a drastic drop in migration. Bid has got a highest migration in Maharashtra. Almost 5 to 8 lakh people migrate every season for sugarcane cutting and other daily wage work. Now to summarize this, there's a huge benefit of RWB to the government, because wherever we have done RWB, the demand for Narega has gone down. The education, as Joe's slide said, that 45% of people have increased the expenditure on education. Employment, less migration, livestock, quality of life, livelihoods, sustainability, investments, cropping, value, yield, sanitation, less drudgery. Then in water, there's capture, retention, water cost, and recharge. There's a huge benefit overall, holistic benefit. And RWB is one of the cheapest way of intervention. There is a rich to valley approach, Matha te Paya as they call, and all. But those are actually, when I say it's like a hospital where you are working in the OPD, there's a general ward, there's ICU. We are working in the casualty ward. So in a drought, we have to just forget everything and just focus on the tomorrow. That. So there it is. And now with this, we come to GTNS, which Joe has very well seen. There's relevance to the solution of India. Can this be done elsewhere? Because always to do an experiment in a lab or to make a demo is very easy. So we took it to other districts after Bain. We did it in Maharashtra in many districts. With Joe, we did it now in Karnataka and Andhra with Professor Sastry. But today with Niti Aayog, Amit Chandra Foundation, thanks to Amit, he opened the door which we could not have opened for us. We are in 73 districts already, desilting, and then 12 states. So though the numbers are less in some states, but it's growing by the day. And the impact is very high, especially in states like Rajasthan, where the water stress is very high. Many of you are aware of it. The impact there is felt the best. It is instant. Even the money which the farmer invested in carting the silt, 75%, which we say, in June we stopped the desilting program, by November, the first harvest, which is around Diwali, they recover the cost which they have invested within 6 months. Very few interventions have such ROI for the farmers, and that is why till date, right from 2013 till 23, in 10 years, we have not spent a single rupee on promotion of RWB or advocacy. Not a single rupee is spent. Wherever we start desilting, there is an automatic flow of tractors and tippers and everything. So the farmers very well know the value of silt. So I thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So, Mridula, I'm going to start with you. You've provided us that perspective of water, and you talked a little bit about this whole scientific and traditional aspects to it. Could you just share a little bit more about the science behind RWB and some other practices?
No, hi Amit. Nice to see you. So I think, when I started writing my second book and I really started trying to understand India's water as a whole, there are 4 things to keep in mind. One, it varies so much geographically. And, a professor in Indian Institute of Science says it varies within 100 meters, right? So that's something to keep in the mind when you're designing a solution. Second is, it's one of the most seasonal waters in the world. We get, as I said earlier, we get most of our rainfall in just 100 hours in a year, right? So the thing that comes when you hear that one factoid, one word should be going in your mind like a, bulb: storage, and more storage, right? And the third thing is it varies enormously across years, right? When the El Niños, the Indian Ocean Dipole, etc., come, exit, and enter the stage, there is this concept of average does not apply. And the sad thing is we've colonized our own mind. So we deal with averages across the country, across the seasons. It doesn't work. And the last thing is it's very temporally skewed, right? So you get these very intense bouts of rainfall and very few rain days in a year. And, the water body is custom made to answer all 4 of these facets. It's distributed, so there is spillover from one to the other in many systems. So, the geographic variability is taken care of. It provides a point for storage both across seasons. So, Nimesh, you were saying that in the summer, I think from 16% water storage, it went up to 66, if I'm not mistaken. That's what they meant to do, right? You store it when you have plenty and you use it when especially because once you desilt, you start recharging the groundwater, right? Yes. So that surface water link and is great. Intense rainfall, you have a water body, it's there to suck it up. So it's custom made. And culturally,
So you're saying the science is in the design itself. And I still remember I heard that our ancestors used to walk the earth, right? They didn't have the tools, but they would understand how the flow was. And the water bodies are all typically man-made. Everything you're seeing there, these are all man-made structures that were done from Harappan times. So thanks for that, Mridula. Amit, you are involved in several development sectors, right? Education, rural development, health. But you've made this a very personal journey. Not just for yourself, but even RWB is something that you kind of carry and charge with yourself, IIT Chandra, with the government. So give us some background to what compelled you to do that.
Firstly, my compliments, Joe, to you and your team for putting this much needed event together, and my sincere apologies to everyone for not being unable to attend in person. The loss is entirely mine. Joe, as you pointed out, Archana and I have been involved across sectors. But in 2016, Nimesh Bhai also mentioned, we decided to materially double down on rural development and consequently on capacity building. What got us there was simply 2 things. One was a big nudge from the horrible scenes that we saw emerging from repeated droughts. And second was actually a analysis that we did looking at where people like us were spending time and money versus the scale of problems, societal problems that existed around us. So we asked a team from Give India, Deepti was in the room, to look at different ways to address rural distress. And that actually led us to the work that Nimesh Bhai was doing in Jalna, a place he mentioned. And we actually, asked the question, if tens of thousands of crores have been spent on the water problem in our state alone, and if NGOs have been working on this area for decades, then why does actually the problem persist? I think the advantage was we were looking at it from a clean slate. And, since I, at that point of time, had already run a bank and I was, an investor, we approached things with a capital and a time efficiency lens. And also everything we did in our foundation was with a collaboration mindset. So we were very impressed with the solution Nimesh Bhai was doing, because it kind of fit in with all those check boxes. And so we joined him, from the very start of his journey. Over the coming years, we were actually able to significantly widen the scope of our work. Bain was a great example, thanks to the wonderful partnership we've had with Aniket ji, Lala ji, and their teams. And word then got around, and the Maharashtra government actually constituted the committee that Nimesh Bhai, talked about, where many of us participated and were able to really, do something that we had done, many of us did for the first time, which is figure out actually how to work with the government. And the reason we did that was because we realized actually at some point of time that this problem was a problem of scale. And if we really only limited it to our own capability, we would never be able to solve it. And so that is what got us on the journey of working with the government. I must give credit to the government, Anand Bang, you heard him. They acted really quickly on our committee's recommendations to bring out a policy that over the years, if you dial forward, has resulted in, the rejuvenation of, close to 10,000 water bodies. We alone, working with Caring Friends, have been able to do close to 5,000 water bodies in 7,500 villages. And I think, it's been an incredible journey, but let me pause there and just say I think we're still just scratching the surface.
Sanjiv, you've been doing a lot of work in water and livelihoods, and you see that, we've talked about drought, but one of the aspects I know when I spoke to you was this whole element in livelihoods around animal husbandry and the cattle. And I know Nimesh Bhai kind of showcased, but there's more to it that you've kind of talked about. If you can give us some more context of what you've seen and the power of that side of it. I think it's on. It's on, Sanjiv.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me here. I'm glad this event is occurring. Coming to the point which you are raising, I would make two other points in addition to what you said. All social, if I may say, not economic. I mean, I'm not talking about numbers in terms of incomes and so on and so forth. One major point which we often forget is that of cattle owners who are small, one or two animals. And as you know, the goat is the animal of the marginal. And, Dalit and marginal communities, marginal in terms of both social weight they carry in the society out there and income they earn and so on. Now, all animals like you and me, everybody needs water to drink. And this drinking water problem of the animals is extremely acute, particularly whenever there is a drought or any kind of stress of weather-induced stress, water-induced stress. As it is, traditionally, there have been migrant animal herders in regions like Bain and Usmanabad, and they go on up to Yavatmal and all that. They travel 300, 400 kilometers and they stop at a place where there is water available. Now, that kind of a migration with this kind of extremely large, substantial improvement in rejuvenated water bodies, that stress on the animal feeding would reduce very substantially. And that has a very big social advantage because that is the livelihood of the rural poor people. Okay, so there's one major advantage that one needs to look at whenever one is rejuvenating any water bodies, because then the animal husbandry around that becomes more stable. And if you look at the livelihood baskets of people and you compare it across region, the livelihood basket of the drought-prone areas is dominated by animal husbandry. If, for example, I'm saying in proportion. Absolute numbers may be different, but in proportion, if an irrigated area in a, let's say like Kolhapur or Punjab, whatever, animal husbandry might contribute to maybe 15-20% of the total income. In a drought-prone area like Bain or Osmanabad, animal husbandry could contribute up to 40-45%. But that's so unstable because of absence of water. So that becomes stabilized. This is the first point I want to make. There's 2 quick points I'll make. The second big social advantage that you have of revitalization is this issue of bathing, which Nimesh Bhai was talking about. See, we do strange research, and one of the research which we did was about how do women bathe in India. You will say, what the hell, I mean, don't you have any other work to do? But believe you me, you use census figures, we did surveys, 45 to 55% of the women in rural India have no secure bathing place. All right, they have to bathe right under the sky, so to say. Okay, so that's a big problem. And in a drought-prone area, the poor lady, you heard her saying that we had to work for 2-3 hours to just fetch water. So she fetches water for all other purposes, and then she forgets to bring water for her own bath. And how many of you here did not take a bath today? Yeah, nobody's going to raise their hand because baths is so essential to us. And here are thousands, if not say hundreds of thousands of women who are simply unable to take a bath because there's no water. So that's some major issue that we need to look at. And unfortunately, policy planners like you and me are all dominated by males, and we are so insensitive to this issue. The third issue which I would like to raise is about the Dalits. Now, whether we like it or not, whether we agree to it or not, Dalits have very poor access to water, including drinking water, in most Indian villages. The Dalits would typically stay in a kind of hamlet of their own, which would be in a bad locality in terms of slightly raised, stony kind of soils and so on. And the wells in those localities would dry the first. And then they have to come and plead and beg for getting water from the wells which are used by others. Now, the Prime Minister might have started this Har Ghar Nal and all that kind of a scheme. But you can't drink a null, no? That water has to flow through this null. And that has probably not happened. And therefore, Dalits are still subjugated to the dominant people of the community. And a lot of exploitation happens just on drinking water. We may like it or not. And I mean, I talk because I've done research on this. We have published papers on Dalits' access to water in Indian villages. And it is a terrible situation. So when you rejuvenate water bodies like this, and they're all public water bodies, the Dalits can access that water with dignity. And that is something I think that's tremendous value to me. And I hope to everybody here. So let's not just get caught up with numbers. I would just end with a couplet of Jamshid Singh. सोच समझ वालों को थोड़ी नादानी दे भंगोला. या आपको नादानी वाली बात लगती होगी कि दलितों का पानी का क्या है, महिलाओं को नहाने का क्या है. इसलिए मैं कहता हूं कि सोच समझ तो हम करते हैं. We do calculate efficiencies and investments and stuff like that. But सोच समझ वालों को थोड़ी नादानी दे और इस प्रकार के इश्यूज को भी थोड़ा ध्यान दिया करें. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So Amit, I'm going to switch now to the government side of things. You were working with Maharashtra, now Niti Aayog. Tell us more about that experience and what value they see. And again, in this room, we have a lot of CSR, ESG. How can corporates who are working in the sector take advantage or push further on some of the things you've learned?
Yeah. No, first of all, I must compliment Sanjiv on the points he made because, and we now have data because we are trying to measure exactly the impact, for example, on, livelihood, particularly on, animals. And it's incredible. This is something I actually learned on the ground based on nudges that Nimesh Bhai did, that wherever we would do work, the first signs of it would be, you would see animals, even wild animals actually show up in summer months at the rejuvenated water bodies. So, and we started actually therefore trying to gather data on this. So it's extremely important. Joe, going to your question, look, I paused on your first question with our journey on Maharashtra. And then when we zoomed out and looked at the country as a whole, what we realized is that nearly 50%, a little bit more than that, perhaps, of our districts are water stressed. And so now that we have data, because we have a water body census report, we realize that the full potential of the work that we do is perhaps, if you look at just, large water bodies, half a hectare and above, publicly owned, is perhaps, 1.5 lakh water bodies. And if we actually rejuvenate all of them, we can make a very material dent in this scourge of, water distress. And so in the foundation, along with Caring Friends, we made it our mission to see how to make this happen. And so we've got a multi-pronged approach. The first is, of course, to evangelize this concept with, as much as possible, whether it's with, quality partners like the one, Joe has founded, like IIT-IIT, or CSRs. We've now been able to do that, I would say, across the length and breadth of the country, but I would say there's a lot more to be done. At the end of the day, the more people understand this and, adopt it, the quicker this technique will basically grow, because at this point of time, we think it's happening at scale in maybe 7 or 8 states. And we are very clear, we are not, at the end of the day, going to be able to solve this problem ourselves. So that's the first thing, which is evangelize the concept as much as possible. I would say we probably have today been able to develop maybe 25, 30 partners across the country who are able to do scale work. The second is work, with both central and various state governments to shape policy and support execution when they switch on the button. We have been able to do that. Nimesh bhai showed a map in, now in 5 water stressed states, and we work very closely with the center. And this is ramping up materially. My hope is that with this ramp, sometime in the next year or two, we should be able to start rejuvenating 20 to 40,000 water bodies a year. The third is, you look at our job, because we work across with high quality partners and we keep our ear very close to the ground, is to keep looking at learnings and best practices which come and then cross-pollinate them across the board. A good example is a few years ago, we were having a conversation with Joe in Bangalore, and he talked about, using units of, in order to support scale. So now we actually, with modules in everything we do. Everything is like a 10,000, cubic meter module, and that allows us and partners to think, in a very modular way. And we've had a lot of other such learnings that we have kind of, taken from one place. It could be a small partner, it could be a large partner. Sometimes it's a farmer, and we cross-pollinate that. The final, and I would say probably most important thing is, incorporate and build a real multilingual, library of content which people can leverage to be able to do this work. And also digital public goods. So, we've supported FES, for example, to develop a multi-layered tool which can be used for prioritizing which areas to work in. We've worked with an organization called Samagra to develop a tool called Avni, which now both the center and Maharashtra government are using to basically as a monitoring and dashboard tool. And these are completely open access tools. Anybody wants to work them, we work with them. We basically support the transition of this tool to them. So this year in Maharashtra, for example, we provided the entire support of the transition of this tool to the Maharashtra government. And they were able to work in almost 1,000 villages using this tool. And we didn't have to do what we've historically done in Maharashtra. We envisage a day when this can be done across the country. And our job is more of a knowledge provider, a project manager, and simply a developer of cutting edge tools. With that, we feel that maybe there will be at some point of time in the next 5 to 10 years where we become completely irrelevant and we can focus on some other problem, because ultimately that is our theory of change. Problems should not persist 75 years after independence. It's a shame on all of us, whether it be philanthropists or NGOs or policymakers, that we have such, sticky problems.
That's a holistic approach on several aspects, Amit. And let's build on the policy piece, Sanjiv. You know, you've done a lot of research.
Yeah, but I think one should listen to the Karamchand. Now you have been asking Mr. Lala. You don't need Ganchans and.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'll walk this over.
मैं तो हिंदी में बोलूंगा, माफी चाहता हूं कि मैं अंग्रेजी में नहीं बोल सकता, लेकिन जब भी मौका मिलता है ड्राउट का, क्योंकि ड्राउट आता है तो बहुत हमें सिखाता है, फ्लड आता है तो हमें बहुत सिखाता है, अर्थक्वेक भी आता है तो बहुत सिखाता है। अभी जिक्र किया, अभी निमेश भाई ने कि अर्थक्वेक में भी काम किया है। तो हमारे सामने अगर समस्याएं है तो उसके लिए हल भी है, और वो हल हम सब में है। बस इतना ही मैं कह चाहता हूँ। धन्यवाद।
All right, I'm going to then switch to a couple of questions from the audience.
Okay. So it's very inspiring to listen to what you just said. Well, all of you said actually. Mr. Chandra, this is, I'm Kuti from Tata Motors. And specifically the water question is something that the group has decided to really focus on. As many of you know, we've got several plants. I'm not going to specifically talk about Tata Motors. We've got several plants all over India. And we are picking up a program which is directly going to impact maybe a 25-kilometer radius, 50 kilometers, 100 and beyond. Our purpose is exactly what you said, is to create a knowledge bank, to be able to demonstrate what we can do, and to become a pollinator of these ideas to several people who are in the same space. Maybe if we have an opportunity, we would like to actually learn at your feet to also understand what you were able to bring to the table. And if this collaboration is possible, then we have hundreds of suppliers who would also work, will be willing to work with us. And the Dalit problems, what you refer to, is a very important aspect of our social equity. But there's a small difference. We are not approaching this problem from the CSR point of view, because CSR funds are limited, they are committed, and they also have a shelf life. And there are many people and there are many institutions which are demanding those funds. So taking money, which is a very small portion, 2%, if you see in the Indian context, the total amount of money available would be between about 20 to 30,000 crores. So even if I were to divert about 5% of 20,000 crores, it's not really much. Sorry.
So he's talking about how they want to go about it.
Yeah. So what we are now wanting to, sorry.
I'll just make a point in response to what you made. I mean, I'm obviously a big admirer of the approach of the Tatas, having been a trustee of the trust as well as a board member of Sons. I think and this goes back to the question Joe posed as well. We've now worked with multiple corporates who want to do what you have done, who want to do what you want to do. Asian Paints is a good example in Maharashtra, where we transferred the technology of this completely to them. Now they basically do it by themselves. They use help even from Joe's team, and they are able to basically work around their community. And all the tools that we've developed are available basically to them. We've got other people in the Tata Group who worked with us this year, by the way, including in Rajasthan. Tata Capital worked with us. And so we are very happy. As I said, everything we do is open architecture. So anytime any of your plants wants to know, we will be very happy to conduct training sessions. You can work on our technology platform as if it's your own, and do this, to the extent you want to do.
Yeah. So I just wanted to only add, our intervention from the CSR space is actually moving to make our businesses water neutral, water positive. Then what happens is it's not the CSR funds that is chasing water. It is actually business, and it's treated as an expense item. When we're making this shift, then you have larger targets which are taken by business executives who are dealing with this question almost like any line item in their BSc and their goal sheets. This is the transformation we are trying to bring. But at the heart of this problem is the equity question. And the equity question is not limited to the people question,
I was very glad to listen to what you said, wild animals coming there, birds, animals, and of course the Dalits and the small animals, which get last priority. So I'm really looking forward to, talking to you in the break. And Mridula ma'am, I'm going to Madurai for some similar thing. If you're based in Madurai, I'll see if I can have an opportunity to come and see your institute. And we'll see whether, a broader collaboration is possible, Joe, with your help, in this space. So we're talking to Joe on this several topics. And the reason is, this intersection spaces of all these people all of us coming together is probably a seminal moment. And thank you for that, Joe.
Not at all. Thank you. Yeah, so Mridula is going to, you want to take a question and go, or? Okay, so a question for Mridula. Anybody has a question?
A very valid point. This is Avilash Divedi here. I'm from Mahindra and Mahindra. Looking at what point you made, very relevant, that there has, like we said, there's no free lunch. The world should, knowing that there has to be a price for water, shouldn't India consider importing paddy, rice? Because if you see, China is not getting into paddy production because the major ingredient of growing paddy is water.
No. Once we get into should questions, we'll go everywhere. There are 2 points I'll make. One is, look at the question of biofuels. I think we look at energy independence. Bead, I don't know if Amit is still on, but bead is sugarcane. Sugarcane needs about 1.5 to 2 meters of rainfall a year. Bead gets 740 millimeters. And in that 2016, it got less than 500 millimeters of water. So look, the should question is a nice to have, very practical person. It doesn't work that way. In rejuvenating water bodies, the one point I want to make is it's very important when you craft things not to go with water first. There was a great slide I had, which I skipped over, which is what is sustainability? And all of you answered. And the point that I've noted time and time again, and it ties into what Amit says, is water is completely absent from the sustainability, what people think of as sustainability. I've done this survey for about 5 years. So that's why, Joe, what you're doing here is fabulous. And I started off with that because water is invisible. In the sustainability space, it's invisible. Carbon is there, waste is there, resources is there, water is invisible. Even you guys, in a water conference, self-selected group, if you look at that slide, water is not there. So please evangelize. It's really important. And without water, we have nothing. Okay.
So thank you. No, you have to leave. So thank you to Mridula.
Yeah, I would just add one point connected with this Dalit thing, a suggestion perhaps, and that would be kind of Gantt cap of mine. And the second is about my observation recently from my trip to Bastar area, Kundagaon, Kanker, Bastar, these districts. The water storage efforts of the government of Chhattisgarh under the, what do they call, mega watershed or something. The traditional water bodies are being revived and people are digging new farm ponds and so on and so forth. The cumulative impact of that is that the farmer income, the average rural farmer income has gone up. And believe you me, I have gone into villages where I could not have dared to go 10 years back because of the Naxal problem. So the Naxal recruitment has come down massively, all because water was saved. I'm talking about these 3 districts, Kanker, Kundagaon, and Bastar districts. I traveled in the month of February. So that's one point. The second point about Dalit suggestion, here's the suggestion, is that you are going to spend the money. The corporate is going to spend the money doing this, right? Why, before you spend the money, is it possible for you to say that the panchayat shall obtain a clearance from the Dalits that they will continue to get some kind of a NOC, that the Dalit community will give the NOC for getting free access to the water after the rejuvenated water body? The very fact that the panchayat will have to go under bended knees to the Dalits for getting a certificate will change the power equations there. Just think whether this is feasible.
So I want to wrap up today now, and I know I can't take more questions because we're going to run out of time, but I just want to give you a sense. Everybody is here. That's why we've asked people to stay over. Here's how the journey is unfolding over the next 2 days, right? So you've seen the story of the district of Bain and what's happened. The next story post lunch, going to what Mr. Kuti also brought about, is Asian Paints story. where they have started with rejuvenation of water bodies, but they're looking at a watermark journey around 25 kilometers around their plant, right? A holistic water story, and that's what you're going to understand next. And then the third time we've talked about paddy and other things, ITC is going to talk about a river basin turning water positive, starting with cropping as part of their story. Actually not starting, but a key part that they've discovered is sugarcane and how you can influence the farming side of it. So that's how today's journey is going to unfold to help us understand the multipliers as you bring pieces together, right? And a big part of what I want you to do is use the time in between. People are here over lunch, etc. Talk to one another, exchange ideas. Back here, what's the time now? It's 1:30. So 2:30 on the dot. Let us start with Asian Paint's story of transforming around our operations with rejuvenation of water bodies as a starting point, but watermark being the journey. Okay. So thank you to our panelists. Thank you, Sanjiv. Thank you. Amit's not here anymore.
Thank you, Joe.
And Mridula. And thank you, of course, to Lala Sahib, Nimesh, and Aniket ji. Right? Thank you all.